A long time ago, in the region between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, one of the first civilizations in history flourished, the Sumerians. They were an astonishing people to whom we owe numerous inventions and discoveries, such as the wheel, writing, irrigation systems, and even the very concept of time. The Sumerians were the first to build cities, create literature, and study the stars. The Sumerians arrived in Mesopotamia around 5,000 years before our era. They did not call themselves Sumerians. That name was created by archaeologists. They referred to themselves as the black-headed people, or Zagib, which simply meant person. Scientists still debate the origin of the Sumerians. Some believe they came from the Iranian plateau, while others think their home was in the Indus Valley or the Arabian Peninsula. The boldest hypotheses even suggest an extraterrestrial origin for this enigmatic culture. In their myths, an island called Dilmun is mentioned, where supposedly eternal life exists and there are no diseases. Some archaeologists believe this could have been present-day Bahrain, but no confirmation has been found. The first Sumerian cities were Uruk and Eridu, whose population reached thousands of people. Uruk was not just a settlement, it was a true center of ancient civilization, where temples dedicated to gods like Inanna, the goddess of love and fertility, and Anu, the god of the sky, were found. In these cities, the Sumerians began to build monuments, control river floods, and develop agriculture. The Sumerians became famous for their inventions. They were the first to invent the wheel, first for the potter's wheel, and then for transporting loads. This was a true revolution for trade and construction. The Sumerians also created cuneiform writing, the first writing system in history. At first they used simple drawings, but later developed a more complex system where symbols represented sounds. This allowed them to record economic, chronic, and social activities, and of course to create literary works. Mathematics and astronomy were other prides of the Sumerians. They developed numerical systems based on 12 and 60, and thanks to them we divide the hour into 60 minutes and the circle into 360 degrees. The Sumerians were the first to observe the stars, record the movement of the planets, and create calendars. This knowledge was important for humanity, important not only for agriculture but also for religious rituals. Life in Sumerian cities revolved around the temples, which played a crucial role in society. These enormous temples, the Ziggurats, rose above the city, symbolizing the connection between the earth and the heavens. They were not only places of worship but also fulfilled administrative and economic functions. Grain reserves were stored in them, business deals were closed, and disputes were resolved. Power in the city belonged to the En, the high priest, but over time the title of lugal, which means great man, emerged. The lugals started as military leaders but later became rulers. The Sumerians created the first schools where boys were educated, girls were educated at home, and students learned writing, the basics of mathematics and religion. The teachers were priests who passed on their knowledge to future generations. Sumerian literature left a profound mark on history. Their epics, hymns, and prayers became the foundation for later myths and stories. For example, the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the most well-known works of antiquity, tells the story of the king of Uruk, who sought immortality and was a friend of Gilgamesh, of a wild man named Enkidu. In this epic, themes are mentioned that were later incorporated into the myths of other cultures, including the biblical story of the Great Flood. The Sumerian religion was very complex. Each city had its protective god, and the entire Sumerian pantheon was populated with numerous gods. They believed that the gods controlled everything in the world, from the flooding of rivers to human destinies. The temples were not only places of worship but also banks where the city's wealth, grain, jewels, and goods were stored. Unfortunately, the Sumerian civilization could not withstand external threats. The constant wars between cities made them vulnerable. Finally, in the 24th century BCE, the Sumerian cities were conquered by King Sargon the Great, founder of the Akkadian Empire. But even after the fall, Sumerian culture continued to influence all of Mesopotamia. Today, it is difficult to imagine how great the achievements of the Sumerians were. They laid the foundations for later civilizations, such as Babylon and Assyria. Their inventions are still in use. We continue to measure time, observe the stars, and all of this began with the Sumerians. They left us not only artifacts and written testimonies, but also the very idea that the world can be changed through knowledge and technology. Additionally, the Sumerians were the first to treat diseases not only with herbs, but also with medications, but also with magical rituals. They believed that diseases could be expelled through incantations and special ceremonies. These early physicians laid the groundwork for future medicine. The Ziggurats, their majestic temples, were not only religious centers but also a kind of city treasury, where wealth and grain reserves were stored. And of course, the Sumerians were the first urban planners. Their cities were planned with clear streets, canals, and public buildings. The Sumerians left an enormous legacy, which became the foundation for all subsequent civilizations. Their knowledge, inventions, and myths have been etched forever in the history of humanity. They were people who, despite the difficulties, managed to create a civilization that left a mark that will never be erased.